welcome to Governing AI for the Good of Humanity. I have started this initiative within the Global Justice Program with the idea of looking at AI through a lens that is not only a doomsday scenario, but trying to find opportunities and maybe create ways to shape it in order to serve humanity and maybe resolve or address some of the world's most pressing issues, not only ethical, but also just, practical issues like, could be things related to public health, could be related to education, and, anything else that may help create more equality or close the inequality gap. So for today, we have a group of really interesting speakers. They are leaders and visionaries in AI. They're policymakers, experts who will talk about their work and ways to address, to redesign AI to serve humanity. Our moderator for today is a very interesting journalist. Her name is Jennifer Strong. She's a distinguished journalist and podcast creator who's dedicated her career to making complex science technology topics accessible and relatable. Her work is recognized by Webby and Podcast Academy nominations, illuminates the ethical dimensions of technology, and brings a human touch to critical issues in AI. She's known for her passion and engaging storyteller, as an engaging storyteller.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Diana. That was very, very sweet. So, she's right. Now is the time to shape AI in a manner that has us looking to the road ahead in a way that we build a world we want to live in, right? If we're going to have these discussions about AI ethics, and we're going to be ready for what's to come, now is the time. And if we want to understand AI ethics as more than just a conversation about clean data, right? Because it is a much bigger conversation, much more important conversation that I think we even realize yet. So as she said, I'm Jennifer Strong. I'm a reporting fellow with the Pulitzer Center, and I've been focused on AI accountability and reporting on AI since about 2016 at this point. And I'm here because I really want us to take a moment to think deeply about our work and the hard legal, ethical, practical questions that we now face in how we're going to live with this tech both now and on into the future. There are unsolved questions, maybe some are unsolvable questions, time will tell. And I don't know about you, but I spent a lot of time with this technology and enough to know its current limitations, the ways in which it's still pretty dumb often, and also see at the same time the vast potential that lies ahead for us and for this. It's my job, I see it anyway, it's my job to make sure as many people as possible understand that AI is a tool. Is and will only be as good as we make it. So even with perfect data, remaining curious but cautious is a critical part of deciding the when, how, and what to trust with this technology. And a constant reminder I try to give that, after all, the most advanced computer on the planet is still the one we carry around with us on our shoulders. It is the one that we're trying to copy into this artificial form of intelligence, the original intelligence. So I also think that our ability to grasp what is ahead for us, what's going to happen with AI in the bigger picture, it's a little bit like asking somebody in 1900 what the risks of space travel would be. And I think they would get parts of it just conceptually. Hey, we're probably going to need some really powerful rockets, and those rockets might explosive, they could blow up. But I don't think we'd be able to predict the risk of losing a solar shield panel, right? Something like that on reentry. And that's what this moment is. So much of this moment is really about those fine details. So I'm a journalist. I document things. This is not an easy beat because a lot of this hasn't happened yet. And I am not a fortune teller. I have no crystal ball. It would be handy, be kind of cool. Anyway, what I do know is that I can't tell you the future. And I've met a lot of people who claim to be experts in it anyway. And you can't really argue with them because, once again, it hasn't happened yet. So nobody can prove them wrong. It's up to us to then decide what we want to prove right. What are we going to build? How are we going to build it? What intentions are we going to put forth? right? Now's the time to really think about what is the world we want to live in and how are we going to get there. So all this is a way to say, raise your hand if you think kids, we should give their most sensitive biological data into systems, their iris scans, fingerprints, give it to tech companies and say, here you go make products with this. Yeah, probably nobody, right? Also, raise your hands though if you would sign your child up to have a medical procedure with a device or a technology that can't tell the difference between them and a grown-up. Right, because these are two sides of the same coin. This is what governance is all about, folks. It's about people. It's about our stories, our families, our children, the world we want to live in. And all of this kind of start with these tough questions about AI governance, with these nuanced arguments about sensitive things, sensitive data, real situations, and real people. And if you've heard only one thing about the current risks of AI systems, it's probably about the potential for the things that could go wrong, right? The potential for discrimination based on things like age, race, gender, ethnicity, health, religion. And all of that's true, but not just for the reasons you might guess. Because when we build systems without high quality examples of all these sensitive things, you create systems that are blind to sensitive situations, or worse, they can be dumb about them. And we wind up with things like face recognition that doesn't work well on dark skin, or other types of technologies that do not serve the young or the old or those who are at most risk of harm in many cases. So I could talk to you all day about some of the things I've seen. I've been looking at applications of AI since 2016, so I have seen some things from nursing homes to space technologies, inside fighter planes and all kinds of places. But I'm going to limit it to a few things that might resonate. First one, a team I led at MIT spent several months looking at the applications of AI in hiring. And these are products used on a very large scale, often by many companies within the Fortune 500 and many, many countries around the world. This is not a small little product used by a few people. One we tried of dozens of different types was really meant to help call center workers to realize which of your staff needed support, perhaps with English proficiency, and also in the hiring to really choose someone who has strong English language skills. The way it works is that the app asks you some questions, it records and grades your answers to those questions. And my reporting partner for this project, who actually has now a book that's been named by the Financial Times the best business book of the year, called The Algorithm, which is about AI and hiring. She was born in Germany, and for some reason, despite having a whole lot of accolades and awards and being very good at speaking English, felt a little stressed about this. You know, what if it finds something about my English that I don't know about? Anyway, her lab assistant is from China and speaks Cantonese, and as well as Mandarin. But they somehow, in the course of this, went from they began speaking to this tool without speaking in English at all and getting pretty good scores. Is the net of this. So we gave this tool a lot of benefit of the doubt. We called up experts from other universities. Maybe the tool is so smart, it is translating their answers to their questions and then grading on the quality of the answer. Maybe it's this, maybe it's, maybe, you know, cognates something. We began reading Wikipedia pages unrelated to the questions being asked, like, you know, stories about circus performing, like whatever, and getting pretty good scores still. So eventually we call up the CEO. He kind of chuckles at us. No, this tool is not translating. In fact, the content of your answers doesn't matter at all. It's not grading what you say. It's not even technically grading what language you speak when you say it. Though it is an English proficiency tool that companies are purchasing all over the world to grade English proficiency, doesn't matter what language you speak, the tool was checking for vocal confidence. And German sounds extremely confident. So, and that was the moment I realized we had just gone full circle, because these tools were meant to help us not give the job to the most confident person in the room. It was meant to make this more fair and take our own bias out of this. And instead, here we were. So, thoughtful governance, without it, who knows what our future holds in terms of the tests we take and the goals we set and the things we think we're trying or using or achieving, right? Maybe it's all just checking for confidence. AI is a tool. It will only be as good as we build it to be. And staying curious but cautious is extremely important with all of this work, having intentionality to our work. And back to face recognition not working on some populations. I have a story about that too. About this time last year, I went to the African country of Rwanda, and I went to visit their version of the Pentagon. And while I was there, I let them know I'd covered policing during 2020 in the US, had some experience with tools that they had since purchased and brought into their country. I knew too that they had been training with the Illinois State Police. And so I threw it out there. I'm curious how this tech is working for you, given the challenges we have with it in the United States. I'm in town until this date. This is a population that is more than 99.7% dark skinned. So anyway, a few days later, the federal police came to the resort where I was staying. And I can tell you the hotel staff, their expressions were pretty great as I went and hopped in the backseat of a police car and left for a few hours. But they kindly took me all around to see all kinds of tech that I had seen before, but now I was seeing it in a completely different way. I was seeing things like biometric cameras, but at the top of a light pole where you press a red button. And instead of escalating a situation, for one, they don't have staff everywhere and the ability, but it meant that police could know who they were interacting with. And there were situations like, hey, does your mom know that you're in this fist fight? So suddenly you've got your identity, but without escalation. You had stories of people saying they delivered babies with help from this camera up above, all kinds of other things. But you also had what they claim was a 40 plus, almost 50% over the year decline in traffic fatalities because they were using this tech to issue speeding citations within minutes. So basically, every time you drove past that intersection, if you're going too fast, you would get your ticket to your cell phone within about 3 minutes, and it had already been checked by a human. So they had a staff just there verifying these tickets. And it turns out, probably no surprise to most of us here, that behavior changes when you're in the moment versus like when I get a speeding ticket and it comes in my mailbox 2 months from now. And I'm thinking, is that me? What was that? Anyway, and yes, it works just fine on dark skin. They looked at me slightly strange and said, well, no, we just put our own model. Like we built our own data sets and we, bought your off the shelf product and then we made it work for us. So, I just, yeah. So the world we build, it's up to all of us and we need to feel ownership in it. And I feel that so strongly because I've spent the last year on a documentary project for NPR stations called The Race to Superintelligence. And the takeaway we had, just city after city, whoever we spoke to, is that people don't really feel empowered. This is not, if you are not yourself a technical person working in a technical field, if you're a social sciences person, if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, if you're a judge, it's like, oh, that's someone else who creates that technology. We just use it. Okay, but if we don't ask hard questions and we're not skeptical and we're not invested, then someone else is building our future. And it is a conversation that we have a right to ask questions about and to be present for and be active with. So I remember clearly the moment that I realized that despite the fact that I studied foreign policy, so I have no right to be over here covering tech, right? But I remember the moment that I knew that documenting, explaining, and really striving to bring accountability to these systems would be my life's work. For me, it was 2018. I was on assignment for the Wall Street Journal in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and the local government had started using algorithms to decide who would get access to social services. And is things like, well, they had way more phone calls than they could possibly respond to for potential cases of child abuse. And the idea was from a very good-hearted place. They wanted to make this more fair. So if you could take the human judgment, small area where it's someone answers the phone and realizes it's a teacher that their kids had, if you could take all that out of that and just look at all the records, more records than a human could possibly pour through, and do it in minutes, and then have a sense for why you might assign a social worker to this and make that judgment in theory fair. But at any rate, and there was a lot, they've had a lot of ups and downs if you're familiar with that system to this day. It's evolved with time. But I would just say from there, 6 months later or so, I went to the UN's AI for Good Global Summit to give a speech called "We're All AI Journalists Now," because in reality, we all are, all of us, no matter what you do. And in terms of journalism, no matter what you cover, because if it's education or pharma or supply chains, social justice, you need to be able to understand that AI is a part of that at this point. And you need to know what your role is with it going forward. Once again, so that you are doing the work that you believe you're doing with full intentionality. So I think what gets lost, going back to governance, what gets lost in all these conversations is that AI is the most impactful human story of our lifetime, and all governance is about people and people's lives. And as I stand here, Israel's AI system Lavender is being used to target individuals it decides might be threats. In Rwanda, women are not dying in childbirth because specialized drones have made it possible to deliver blood products in minutes to areas that used to take days or even weeks, in some cases, to reach these hospitals. And now there's a plan for how to get things to them. So all over the world, people are being hired, fired, fed, denied, or given access to care and resources, all based on algorithms. And the ethics of all of this go way beyond how clean your data set is. We need to think about the human labor that creates these systems. I think part of the problem really is that we still think of technology as something abstract, when in reality, like our own intelligence, AI is physical. And we can't divorce it from the things that power it, not the exploitation of the environment, water use, children who work in mines to get minerals that are needed for these machines, right? So we're still thinking about how to responsibly build and use all these technologies. That's normal, as we had cars before we had seatbelts for a reason. But that's the job of those who work in governance, right? So it's to come in behind and keep the rest of us safe. So thank you.